Hello and welcome everyone, once again, to the Harmacy. Today we are going to be going over the patch notes for Multiversus, and I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit annoyed, but very happy. I had actually completely recorded and edited an entire video, ready to go, ready to upload, and I was actually talking about a lot of the points that were addressed in this update, because there was a lot of issues with Multiversus that, despite loving the game, were really kind of hurting my enjoyment as well as the enjoyment of many others. So let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, the overall patch summary. The big theme here is whiff recovery. This patch is our first pass at globally adding more risk into powerful attacks through whiff recovery. When you commit and miss an attack, in many cases there will be a larger window for the opponent to punish. We will be trying to be careful with this. We want to help ensure that we are improving the neutral game towards a direction that is more calculated, while not creating or encouraging extremely passive gameplay scenarios. We want moves with great power to have a high cost for using them, whether that be a cooldown or commitment. The game should not play differently should you land your attack. This will be a work in progress, and we will constantly evaluate and address whiff recovery. We welcome any and all feedback from the community. So this sounds great, something that has been a huge complaint of mine. I haven't talked about it too much in my videos recently because I tried to keep an overall positive tone. But whiff recovery is a huge deal. It's present in very literally every single fighting game you've ever played. And it's kind of put beside something like blocking, which is something that Multiversus doesn't have. And you can basically make almost anything safe in this game at the moment by either performing a special attack or simply dodging out of it. And there was really no need to commit to anything, even very, 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 very strong attacks. So, moving on. First of all, we are finally getting the Space Jam map, The Court. It's time to ball up and ball out. The Court is finally getting drafted from custom matches and will be joining the 2v2, 1v1, and Silly Q map rotation. Time to turn those pickup games into officials. The walls on the court will now break after a single wall bounce and will now respawn after a short time and push players inwards. We are hoping that this change will mitigate the effectiveness of camping by the blast box and to help keep the ball in bounds. Very excited. I've wanted to be able to play this map on live for, well, ever since it was announced. It seems like a really cool stage. And it's a pretty big departure from anything else we have in the game. So, first character that we have up on the roster today is going to be Arya Stark. First of all, ground up attack, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. Ground up side attack, increased whiff recovery by 1 frame on the first jab. Air down attack, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. And the air/up ground special, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. Batman. He has quite a few changes. Starting off, his movement speed was reduced down to 2250 from 2300. I fully agree, Batman is way too fast for the utility that he has and the power that he has. I'm not gonna lie, I would have liked to see maybe a couple extra points of weight added onto him, similar to what they did with Harley Quinn, because they are doing a few other things to him that is going to weaken him quite a bit. So his ground down attack, the second hit now applies a single stack of the weakened debuff. Ground side attack, the second hit now applies a single stack of weakened debuff, and its whiff recovery was increased by 2 frames on the first jab and 3 frames on the second jab. And this is why I kind of feel like he should have been given a little bit more power as far as making him a little bit heavier. His air/ground neutral attack, which is battering, no longer applies weakened debuff stacks on hit. Now this is a huge deal for Batman. If you've ever played a Batman, which that was a huge part of his game plan, was extending/opening combos with his batarang and then applying debuff stacks, which makes his combos more effective. So it's a big deal. I'm glad that they also gave a little bit of extra power to his ground down and his ground side by allowing those to apply weakened. Unless they plan on giving him a new signature perk, I'm assuming that the Bouncerang perk will still apply the 3 debuff stacks. It wasn't mentioned that that's removed, so it should be okay. Air up attack. Increased whiff recovery by 6 frames. Air side attack. An issue is fixed where on-hit buffs could be applied to enemies without the attack connecting with hit 2 of side air attack. Next up, the air/up ground special. The whiff recovery was increased by 4 frames on the up air special, and the whiff recovery was increased by 3 frames on the grounded version. Last up, his air/ground side special. They fixed an issue where grapple had no whiff recovery when used on the ground. They are also aware of issues with precision grapple signature perk, and it will be addressed in the next patch. Moving on to Black Adam, very small changes, as you'll see is kind of a running theme with the newer characters who have been designed with whiff recovery and fair play in mind. Most of these changes will really be heavily affecting older characters as opposed to new characters. So Black Adam. Ground neutral special fixed an issue where Black Adam's chain lightning would whiff through opponents after Black Adam was wrung out. Next up, Bugs Bunny. Ground up attack increased whiff recovery by 4 frames. Now I don't play a lot of Bugs Bunny, but I'm pretty sure that is the kick move. Moving on, we have Finn the Human. Ground neutral attack increased whiff recovery by 11 frames. Air down special. Apples now have 2 ammo with a 10-second recharge. I absolutely love this change. This is a huge deal, especially in higher level play where the apples are utilized much more heavily. It's the same reason that they gave Taz ammo on his apples. They can just be very oppressive even for being a relatively weak projectile. The air down attack spam is dead. The land cancel window was delayed by 6 frames, and the increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. The air side attack increased whiff recovery by 7 frames on the first hit of Finn's air side attack. Air/ground side special fixed an issue where Finn would use the air version of side special on the ground if an apple was on the screen. I never encountered this one myself, but I'm glad that it was noticed, and I'm glad that it was taken care of. Air/ground side special slightly increased the size of Finn's ground side special projectile blocking shield. Next up, another very small change to Garnet. She doesn't need a whole lot of changing. She's in a pretty decent spot. I feel like there are some places that could give her a little bit more love, but it is what it is. Air up attack increased whiff recovery by 7 frames. Next up, Harley Quinn. Ground side attack fixed an issue where Jab 4 did not suffer from attack decay. Ground side attack, shoulder hitbox removed on the first jab. Ground up side special, land cancel window delayed by 6 frames. The air version is unaffected. Huge change to the air neutral attack. A couple huge changes. The hit cancel window was moved back by 2 frames. I assume this is to kind of fix her combo route that she has with the hammer as it stands. I believe that right now it is in the game, but it is, if I'm not mistaken, a 1 or 2 frame window. It's basically the tippy top of players, and even then they're going to struggle to ever hit this online. So their explanation is allowing Harley to cancel her air neutral attack into another move provides for additional combo follow-ups, which should help with combo expression and provide a reward for Harley players when landing a hit. Now keep in mind this is only 2 frames, the game runs at 60 frames per second, it is a very minuscule amount of time. If it was 2 frames before, it's 4 frames now, if it was 1 before, it's 3 frames. It's still going to be a very tight cancel window, but it will be rewarding actual skilled play, just making it a little bit more accessible in the online space. Now we have the air neutral attack, but once again, the whiff recovery was increased by 8 frames. This is fantastic. If you have played against a Harley recently, basically 90% of their gameplay is flying at you with air neutral attack, because there's no real penalty. You have a 360-degree hitbox, and it's incredibly effective and has a sweet spot, which is very easy to hit. I'm glad they changed this. Next up, we have our good friend Iron Giant. Air up attack increased whiff recovery by 6 frames. Air neutral attack increased whiff recovery by 6 frames. Sweet, simple, to the point. Next up, the demon himself, Jake the Dog. Ground side attack. Dodge cancel window delayed by 4 frames on both Jab 1 and Jab 2. Jump cancel window delayed by 4 frames on both Jab 1 and Jab 2. Ground neutral attack. Increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. Air down attack. Increased whiff recovery by 5 frames on the third hit of skateboard. This is great. It adds a little bit of a punish if you are somehow able to miss the final hit, but if you are to miss the first one, it's just going to behave exactly as it does now. This is a great change. Air side attack. Increased whiff recovery by 2 frames. I'm gonna be honest, I wish that this was a little bit more intense than they did. The air side attack on Jake, it is just way too strong. It's way too risk-free. I really wish this would have been one of the 6 or 8 frames for whiff recovery. There's no ammo. There's a very short charge. It's way too strong for what it does. Last up, the air ground up special. The opponent has 15% more knockback influence. Lebron. With the basketball, increased whiff recovery by 3 frames on the air side attack, and without basketball, increased whiff recovery by 6 frames. Air down attack. With basketball, land cancel window delayed by 5 frames. Air down attack. Without the basketball, knockback angle adjusted to be more horizontal in nature. ground down attack. Without basketball, increased whiff recovery by 10 frames. Air/ground side special. With basketball, adjusted the VFX on dunk to better match the hitbox. And now for the massive changes. Now, before we get into this, I know it's going to seem a little bit over the top after seeing so many nerfs and so many pretty dramatic changes over the rest of the cast. If you have played Marvin since his release, you will know that he is wildly underpowered, and not only wildly underpowered, but a lot of his kit just straight up doesn't work. There are combo routes available for him, but they are incredibly difficult compared to a lot of the cast, and you kind of have to play every game at about a 9,000 IQ to really have a chance of winning. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. In general, movement increased Marvin's crouching walk speed to 1050 up from 400. This is an interesting change, but I'm here for it. Next up, his weight was increased to 50 up from 45. I'm very, very happy to see this change, especially with Harley getting her weight increase. 45 was just way too light. There were so many times where I would be at around 70 to 80-ish, and only about half of my body was in the blast box, and I was gone. Done for. And ground side attack. Knockback on first hit is more horizontal. Ground side attack slightly increased Marvin's movement during the second attack. Ground side attack increased hitbox size of Marvin's second attack. The ground side attack reduced hit pause on second hit to 0.15 seconds, down from 0.175 seconds. And the set projectile initial direction on Marvin's third attack to be a little more horizontal. And lastly, the projectile speed was increased to 1,750 on the third attack, up from 1,500. And they say these changes are meant to make Marvin's ground combo more reliable as a true combo. I love this. His 3-hit combo was virtually useless. There's a reason it wasn't in my combo guide. After about 40% on most of the cast, it just kind of stopped working, so I love this change. Now, the air side attack increased the hitbox size. Thank you. Marvin's air side attack, it's a great combo starter, but it was so unbelievably difficult to hit. His hitbox on it was way, way, way too small. 90% of the time, you literally needed to be inside of the enemy for it to work. Great change. Next, a change to the air ground neutral attack fixed a bug where Marvin could infinitely spam this move when performing near the edge of the platforms. I can only imagine they meant to say neutral special, the button. I'm glad they changed this. It wasn't something that would pop up in every single game, but it was definitely something that needed to change. Air/ground up attack, aka air/ground neutral attack. Marvin's uncharged bubble will move forward slightly instead of being stuck in place. I love this. It turns it into a great little poke. Popping up right in front of Marvin, it wasn't very effective a lot of the times. Air/ground up attack. Again, they must mean the up special. This is for the rocket ship. This is a great change. You've pretty much had to babysit your UFO or else it would just get destroyed immediately. It was way too weak. Air ground up attack, again, special. Added additional visuals to better show which team Marvin's rocket belongs to. And they have also set the rocket to have a maximum lifetime of 10 seconds instead of infinite. I like this. And the up/ground up special, once again, this is talking about without the cooldown. The hitbox size of the trumpet was increased. Now this is one that I have complained about repeatedly. I'm so glad that this got addressed because it was incredibly frustrating online to drop a combo when you did absolutely nothing wrong. So they fixed an online bug where follow-up inputs would not register after hitting an enemy with airside special. So happy to see this change. Next up, another small bug, but I'm glad that is getting addressed. They fixed a bug where Marvin's flag could persist after the Batcave's Batmobile platform expired. Air ground down special increased the initial hitbox size of the flag. Air ground down special increased how quickly the hitbox size grows while charging the flag. And they removed the horizontal movement stop when Marvin dashes downward with his air down special, allowing Marvin to retain horizontal movement when starting the attack. This is a great change. It will definitely make it feel much better to use. And they have reduced the lifetime duration of Marvin's flag to 6 seconds down from 8 seconds. I'm assuming that's why they've changed the hitbox size, so it actually has a chance to become a meaningful size. And to compensate for that, they have reduced the flag cooldown to 26 seconds down from 30. Now, another change to the bubble gun. They have fixed a bug where projectiles will get stuck indefinitely after hitting a bubble. I haven't experienced this one either, but I'm really glad that it got addressed. The air ground neutral special slightly increased the hitbox size. Oh boy, the button just got better. Now, the ground side special, one of my favorite moves in his kit, they have reduced the maximum pull distance of Marvin's ground side special. And they also updated it to where if the enemy is not pulled all the way to Marvin, they will be knocked back towards him instead of upward. This could actually provide for some much more interesting combo routes. We'll have to see where that goes. And finally, they added an up and down aiming animation, which is great. It's not a huge deal, but it will definitely bring it more in line with how other abilities that are similar work. Now we have Morty. Ground side attack, increased whiff recovery by 4 frames on the first jab. Air down attack, increased fall speed slightly, so he won't be able to use this quite as effectively while recovering. Air down attack, increased the whiff recovery by 5 frames, so again, same deal, and also makes it less spammable, similar to what they did with Finn. Air up attack, increased whiff recovery by 4 frames, and the down special, increased cooldown to 45 seconds, up from 42 seconds. If I'm not mistaken, that is his rewind ability. That's probably for the best. I'm not sure 3 seconds makes a huge difference, but we'll see. Next, our poor boy Reindog. Ground up attack, increased whiff recovery by 10 frames. Ground up attack is very powerful. That is impressive nerf. Ground side attack, increased whiff recovery by 4 frames on both the first and second jab. And air up attack, increased whiff recovery by 12 frames. So on the ground using air up attack, if you miss, it's a 10 frame recovery. And if you miss any follow-up up attacks, that is a 12 frame recovery. Now for the air up attack, they also fixed an issue where Reindog could branch into dodge or jump on whiff, but could not branch into another attack until much later. The attack whiff branch window has been increased by 12 frames, and the dodge jump branch windows have been adjusted to line up with the attack branch window. Air side attack, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. Rick Sanchez. Ground side attack, increased whiff recovery by 2 frames on first jab. Air side attack, dodge cancel window delayed by 10 frames on whiff. This is a great change. Playing against Rick, he's able to rely far too heavily on his air side attack, so if you can get him to whiff it, which will be very difficult, it's a huge hitbox, he cannot do anything for 10 frames. This is great. Air down attack, increased whiff recovery by 2 frames. Air slash ground up special, fixed an issue where Rick would sometimes not launch himself upwards. Now myself, I never experienced this. However, I did see a couple of videos on, I believe, Twitter that showed this off. I'm really glad that it got addressed. Next up, we have our boy Shaggy. Ground side attack, increased whiff recovery by 4 frames on jab 2, Ground up attack, increased whiff recovery by 3 frames, and the air down attack, increased whiff recovery by 6 frames. Air side attack, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. Land cancel window delayed by 5 frames. Now this is a change that I'm very excited for. Rage buff now lasts for a minimum of 15 seconds, and the ground up special land cancel window delayed by 6 frames, the air version being unaffected. And they've reverted the sandwich change. I feel like this is great, especially with Rage now only lasting a maximum of 15 seconds. Great changes. Steven Universe, air down attack, increased whiff recovery by 10 frames, air up attack, increased whiff recovery by 6 frames, air ground attack, increased whiff recovery by 8 frames. Stripe, the demon himself. Ground side attack, increased whiff recovery by 6 frames on jab 1. Ground up attack, increased whiff recovery by 8 frames. Air side attack, increased whiff recovery by 1 frame. Ground side special, improved efficacy of combo reliability going into the second hit. This is great. It always kind of bummed me out that the skateboard was almost worthless, so I'm glad they changed this. Now we have Superman. Air side attack, increased whiff recovery by 8 frames. Ground down attack, increased whiff recovery by 9 frames. And the air slash ground neutral special, they have increased ice breaths meter to 28, up from 24 charges. Taz, ground neutral attack, increased hitbox active windows by 3 frames. Ground side attack, increased hitbox active window by 3 frames on jab 2. Air neutral attack, increased whiff recovery by 6 frames. And air side attack, increased whiff recovery by 8 frames. Bug fix for the air slash ground neutral special, they fixed an issue where the weakened stacks applied from Taz's eat would not decay properly. And a little change, they have removed the ability for Taz to eat Marvin's spaceship. Good stuff. Velma. Ground side attack, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames on jab 1, and for the up slash ground attack, increased end lag by 8 frames. And now for Wonder Woman. Air up attack, increased whiff recovery by 5 frames. Bug fix for the up air attack, fixed an issue where Wonder Woman could branch into dodge or jump on whiff, but could not branch into another attack until much later. The dodge slash jump whiff branch window has been increased by 5 frames, and the attack branch window has been adjusted to line up with the dodge jump branch. And the attack branch window has been adjusted to line up with the dodge slash jump branch window. Air ground up special, increased whiff recovery by 8 frames. Air slash ground up special, land cancel window delayed by 6 frames on the grounded version. Air version is unaffected. Alright, so that does it for the patch overview today. I apologize, this is a much longer video than normal, but this was a huge list of changes. This is damn near Multiversus 2 at this point. They've made a lot of amazing changes here, and I really cannot wait to start actually getting into them myself. Thank you very much for sticking around. You guys have an amazing day.